For the last week or so, I've been playing a lot of Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition, and I've generally been having a lot of fun with the game. So Chrono Cross is a role-playing game that was originally released back in 1999 for the original PlayStation. It was developed and published by Square, and it has long been considered by many to be one of their classic titles. Now, the Radical Dreamers edition has given Chrono Cross a fresh coat of paint, and it's been released on Windows PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So of course, on the one hand, it is absolutely wonderful that the game itself is being released on these modern systems. Unfortunately, on the other hand, the remastered aspect of the game itself does a few things right, but also feels a little bit lazy, if I'm honest with you. Now, let's be honest, Square themselves have a bit of a history when it comes to remastering their old role-playing classics. Games such as Final Fantasy XII, on the one hand, they did a wonderful job with this. It clearly had a lot of time, effort, and money put into it. However, on the other side of the spectrum, Final Fantasy VIII was a pretty poor remaster, clearly a rush job, and they wanted that one out the door. Sadly, I would say that Chrono Cross does fall within the Final Fantasy VIII camp of remasters. But now, let's get into the nitty-gritty of it all. If you do enjoy the video, please do drop a like, subscribe for future content. Oh, and I will also be doing a Chrono Cross walkthrough right here on the channel, so stay tuned if you want to play along with me. When it was released back in 1999, Chrono Cross was extremely well received by both critics and gamers. It was a very beloved game. And of course it remains so even to this day. So if you have not actually played Chrono Cross before, then the Radical Dreamers edition is going to give a wonderful opportunity for you to experience a bit of gaming history. But a brief overview without getting spoilerific, the game follows a young lad named Serge. He's 17 years old and he lives in a quaint fishing village that's very peaceful until one day his entire world is literally turned upside down by a reality-bending event. It's a great setup, and certainly there is a lot of cliche, as you would expect in this kind of game, but there's also a very engaging story, some great characters, and it's not hard to see why so many players have been able to get really drawn into this adventure. Now, in terms of the gameplay itself, certainly on the surface, you may get tempted to compare Chrono Cross to Square's Final Fantasy franchise, and indeed there are similarities between the two. However, Chrono Cross is not afraid to do its own thing. The turn-based battles are surely going to be familiar to many. However, gone are the traditional progression systems based on experience and leveling, and in its place we have star levels and minor character stat boosts after battles. Rather than gaining standard levels by grinding through random enemy encounters, the bulk of your stat boosts are going to come from defeating bosses. Each time you successfully defeat a story boss, you gain a star level, which will give you that stat boost and then allow you to get a few minor stat boosts from subsequent enemy encounters. However, those non-boss encounters will only allow you to increase stats for a few fights. After that, you will be needing to hunt down the next star level. And what all of this effectively means is that grinding in Chrono Cross is really non-existent. You get your star level by defeating a boss, and then you just need to make sure you've gone through about 7 to 10 battles before the next boss, and you will be at the pinnacle of power. The two main ways of damaging your foes include the attack command, which comes in three forms: a weak attack called number 1, a medium attack number 2, and a stronger attack number 3. However, the weak attack has a higher hit percentage than the stronger attacks, but you can manipulate these hit percentages by opening with weak attacks and then moving down to the stronger ones. It's an intuitive system, and once you've got used to it, it will be second nature. The second means of doing damage that you're going to be using a lot is through the element system, and this is quite a big core part of the game. Comparable in some ways to Final Fantasy VII's materia system, elements will allow you to do massive damage to foes, but you'll need to be careful about which elements you choose based on what the current foes are weak or resistant to. And in order to really make the most out of your elements, you need to do a good job at handling your stamina resource. So there's a lot of strategy involved, and some of the fights in Chrono Cross do get somewhat challenging for sure. The rest of the game does play out, of course, like a typical JRPG. There are plenty of items scattered around that you can go and loot. Annoyingly, not many of these are found in chests. They are just hidden in locations all over the field background, so you'll just have to spam the confirm button everywhere to make sure you're not missing out. In total, you can have 3 party members engaged in battle at one time. However, Chrono Cross allows you to recruit a large number of characters into your group. Again, as I say, it is the same Chrono Cross at its heart, so if you've played the game before, you know what to expect and what a great time you're in for. If you haven't and this will be your first adventure, then my only advice would be to stick with it, give it a chance, and hopefully you'll come to experience what so many before you have said is an absolutely wonderful romp through an amazing game. Okay, right, let's move on to the fact that this is a remaster of Chrono Cross. Now, the title, the Radical Dreamers Edition, refers to Radical Dreamers, which is a text-based adventure novel that was originally released back in 1996. It is in fact a side story to Chrono Trigger, which was a game that was released before Chrono Cross back in 1995. And as far as I'm aware, this will be the first time that Radical Dreamers has been officially translated out of Japanese and released in the West. As you play through Radical Dreamers, you will be given a number of options to choose from, and there is also a combat battle system included as well. It's certainly not going to appeal to everybody that plays Chrono Cross, but if you are a fan of the franchise as a whole, it's definitely worth something checking out. For the main game itself, there are a number of quality of life toggles that you can use in order to make your experience a little less frustrating for 2022 standards. Of course, these are optional, but they are available literally at the click of a button. If you've already played some of the Final Fantasy remasters, I'm sure these will be familiar to you. You have turbo speed. You can actually half speed as well, which is interesting. Both of those features were available in the original Chrono Cross, but you had to complete the game once in order to access them on a New Game Plus. In the Radical Dreamers edition, they are available right from the get-go. You can also prevent enemy encounters, and there are a couple of battle boosts as well. However, unlike some of the more hated Final Fantasy boosts that pretty much ruined your save files by enabling maximum HP and stats or giving you all magics available, etc., none of those are present here, okay? Anything you turn on, you can turn off immediately. You also have the option of fiddling with some of the graphical settings so that you can get your game resembling something closer to the original Chrono Cross. There has been some confusion, it seems, about the soundtrack. It was initially revealed that you would be able to switch between the remastered soundtrack and the game's original musical score. But then we were told, no, you can only have the remastered soundtrack, which a lot of people were upset about. The reason for this confusion is there is no new orchestrated score here. The soundtrack we're getting is the original game soundtrack. All that's happened is that Square have cleaned up the noise from the original WAV files and digitally removed any of the imperfections that were found therein. So this is the original soundtrack that you are getting. The only real change is that there is a brand new track that has been composed and added to the overall score. The music itself is wonderful, you know, it does a great job at enhancing the mood and the experience, and even if you haven't played Chrono Cross before, I'm pretty sure there's going to be at least 1 or 2 tracks that you recognise as you make your way through. Unfortunately, the remastered aspect of the game overall is pretty lazy, as I mentioned at the start. It's not great. Yes, those quality of life enhancements are going to come in very useful, no doubt about that. But sadly, there are also some glaring issues that Square could have resolved had they chosen to put a little bit more effort in. In my view, one of the biggest issues is with the frame rates, especially with battles. Being limited to 15, yes, 15 FPS in 2022 provides a very jarring experience, and it makes the game feel really dated, not in a good way. I just think that Square missed a trick here, to be honest with you. A bit of frame interpolation for a boost to 30 FPS would have gone a long way, and I'm just concerned that a lot of people that are going to be coming to the game are going to be put off by that very low FPS, because it does feel completely unnecessary. And secondly, the new character models are absolutely fine, I don't have a problem with them. But these upscaled field backgrounds are absolutely horrendous. The originals look better despite the fact that they were a lot more pixelated. It's clear that Square have used some kind of AI upscaling technology, but it seems that Square, a multi-billion-dollar company, can't even compete with what fans are putting out for free in terms of upscaling. Compare the field backgrounds here to those given in the Meguri mod for Final Fantasy IX. Well, there is no comparison, let's be honest. I'm not intending to disrespect the developers. I'm sure they did what they could with what was likely a limited budget and limited time. I guess kind of wish that Square would treat their back catalogue of classics with a little more respect than this. But regardless, Chrono Cross is a classic, so for that reason, I'm just pleased that the game is made available on these modern systems, and you can switch back to the original art style if you'd prefer, as I mentioned. It's just so incredibly unfortunate that it's clear how little effort Square have put into this remaster. That makes it difficult to recommend, in all honesty, because, you know, I want to hold them to a higher standard than this. And come on, Square, you need to be doing better, really. However, under the remaster, it is still Chrono Cross at the end of the day, and if you want to experience it, then you can pick up a copy of the game from the 7th of April on your platform of choice, and stick around the channel if you want to follow along with my own playthrough. Don't forget to share your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think of this remaster of Chrono Cross? And I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.